All right, this is a short video to show you how to run chi-square analysis, also known as a crosstabs or contingency tables analysis using JASP and interpreting the output. So I've opened JASP, and I'm going to open up this stats practice data. And if you go to frequencies, you'll see contingency tables as one of the options under classical. So I hit that, and then I have to select one categorical variable for the rows and another categorical variable for the columns. So in this case, let's say I want to know whether, let me get my variables, where are they? Okay, so I know that I have three different generational status groups in this data set: first generation, second generation, and third plus generation. And I know from other research that there's differences between first, second, and third generation students in their academic achievement and some motivation variables. I also know from other research that there's differences between ethnic groups in academic achievement and sometimes motivation variables. So what I want to know is whether the four ethnic groups that I have in this data set are equally distributed across my three generational groups. So that if I run an analysis on the, say, the four different ethnic groups, and I find that there's differences, I need to understand that this may reflect generational status differences more than ethnic differences. If race and gender, or race, is not equally distributed across my generational status groups. Excuse me. So if I look at this table, I can see right away I only have one student who is of Vietnamese descent who is third plus generation. So this is partly because a lot of the Vietnamese families in the San Jose area are relatively recent immigrants. So either the kids themselves moved here from Vietnam after being born in Vietnam, or one of their parents was born in Vietnam and then moved here. So there's not that many Vietnamese families in this data set anyway, whose families have been here for 3 generations or more. So if I go here to cells, I click expected, and then I can interpret my output. So first of all, I look down here at the chi-square test. That is chi and squared, and it's statistically significant. So that tells me that there's a difference between the observed numbers of cases in the cells and the expected numbers of cases in the cells. So the number of cases I would expect per cell by chance is different from the number of cases I actually got per cell. That's not going to be true in every cell. So there's some where the observed and the expected are pretty close. Actually, there's not that many. But like this one here, second generation Latinos, I got about as many observed, 105 cases, as I would expect by chance. And by chance is based on how many Latinos are there in the sample and how many second generation students are there in the sample. And if you consider both of those, you can figure out, okay, well, here's how many Latinos I would expect to be second generation. And the observed and expected is pretty close here. But in other cells, it's really quite different. So, for example, there's 162 Vietnamese students in my sample. And there's 234 third plus generation students in my sample. So you would expect there to be 51. You would expect 51 of the Vietnamese students to be in the third plus gen group, but there's only one. So that's where we see a really big difference. And we would expect there to be only 40 Vietnamese students in the first gen cell, but there's 81 actually. So there's more first and second generation Vietnamese students than we would expect by chance, and way fewer third generation students. Same with the white students. Most of them are third plus generation students, but based on the numbers, we'd only expect 41 of them to be third plus generation students. Instead, 96 of them are. So here's where we see the difference between the observed and the expected in some of these cells. That's how you run a chi-square analysis and contingency table analysis in JASP, and that's how you interpret the output.